Evan stood in the galley, slicing vegetables with slow, careful movements. The steady hum of the cargo ship Starlight Wanderer filled the air, a constant background sound in deep space. He was used to it, endless darkness outside, the predictable routine of cooking meals 3 times a day, and the jokes from the crew. "Hey, cook!" One of the deckhands, Miller, leaned against the doorway, grinning. "You ever think about what you'd do if pirates showed up?" "Throw soup at Ev." Didn't look up. "I'd make sure they're fed before I deal with them," he said. Dryly wiping his knife, Miller laughed and walked away, leaving Evan alone again. That was fine by him. He wasn't on the Starlight Wanderer for glory or adventure. He cooked. That was his job. He kept the crew alive and well-fed. Nothing more, but tonight felt different. There was a strange tightness in the air, something that made the hairs on the back of his neck rise. He couldn't explain it, just a creeping feeling, like the silence before a storm. The ship shuddered slightly, barely noticeable, but Evan felt it through the floor. He paused, knife hovering. Mid? That's not normal," he whispered. The intercom crackled to life. "All crew, report to your stations." "This is not a drill," the captain's voice boomed, tense and clipped. Evan set down the knife, heart suddenly pounding. He opened the galley door and looked down the corridor. Crew members were rushing past, their faces pale and serious. "Happening?" Evan called. "Unknown contact. Get to a safe place," a technician yelled over his shoulder as he ran. Evan stepped back into the galley, his pulse quickening. Unknown contact. In deep space, that usually meant one thing. Pirates. The lights flickered. A low alarm began to wail, filling the ship with an eerie red glow. Evan reached for his comm panel, trying to get a signal, but all he got was static. Then came the sound clang. A metallic thud reverberated through the hall, followed by another, then another. Docking clamps, they were being boarded. He'd heard the stories pirate attacks were brutal. Crews slaughtered, ships stripped, survivors sold as slaves. There were no negotiations, no mercy. A loud crash shook the corridor outside, shouting, gunfire. The pirates were on board. Evan's breathing quickened. He ducked back into the galley, heart racing. The ship was descending into chaos, and he was just the cook. He had no weapons, no training. He wasn't a soldier. Stay calm, think. He pressed himself against the wall, listening. Heavy boots thudded. Closer, mixed with guttural laughter, a voice barked an order, muffled through the steel walls. "Secure the bridge. Find the captain." Evan's eyes darted around the kitchen. No weapons, only knives, pans, and whatever was in the storage. Compartments. He opened one hastily and pulled out a heavy chef's knife. It wasn't much, but it was better than nothing. The galley door slid open with a hiss. A pirate stood there, tall and armored, holding a plasma rifle. His helmet hid his face, but Evan could feel the cold, predatory stare. "Well, what do we have here?" the pirate sneered through his comm speaker. "Just the cook, huh?" Evan froze, gripping the knife behind his back. The pirate stepped inside, rifle raised lazily. "You're not worth taking. Orders are to round up the crew." "Guess I'll save time," and Evan moved. Fast. He hurled the knife with all his strength. It buried itself in the pirate's shoulder joint, and the man roared in pain, dropping his rifle. Evan lunged forward, grabbing the weapon before the pirate could recover, and fired. A plasma bolt hit center mass, dropping the pirate instantly. Evan stood there, gasping, staring at the smoking body. His hands shook violently. He had never killed anyone before. He hadn't even thought. He just acted. The comm device on the pirate's belt crackled. "Unit 7, status." "Did you secure the mess hall?" Evan grabbed it with trembling fingers. "Clear," he forced out, trying to mimic the pirate's rough tone. "Good. Move to engineering. Captain's orders." Evan clipped the device to his belt, wiped his sweaty palms on his apron, and forced himself to breathe. He had a weapon now, and, more importantly, information. He glanced at the pirate's body. He couldn't stay here. They'd come looking. When Unit 7 didn't report in again, Evan ducked into the maintenance hatch at the back of the galley. He'd used it countless times to access supply storage, but tonight it was his only hope. He climbed down into the narrow shaft, the hum of the ship's engines filling the cramped space. "I'm not a soldier," he reminded himself. "I'm just the cook." But something deep inside him whispered, "Then don't fight like a soldier. Fight like yourself. The hatch led to the lower maintenance deck, a maze of pipes and conduits. He kept low, listening for footsteps. Distant gunfire echoed through the ship. The pirates were spreading, hunting for any crew still resisting. Evan paused to catch his breath. His mind raced. He needed a plan. He couldn't take on all of them head-on, but maybe he didn't have to. He knew this ship better than they did. Every corridor, every blind spot, every emergency system. An idea began to form. He couldn't beat them with brute force, but he could outthink them. He pulled up the CUM device, engineering secured. He said, keeping his voice gruff. "Good," came the reply. "We're moving to the bridge. Captain wants all systems under our control." In 10, Evan smirked faintly. 10 minutes? That might be all he needed. He crept through the service corridors until he reached a small control panel. From here, he could access local systems, lights, doors, even environmental controls. He quickly punched in commands, disabling gravity on the mid-dash deck dot above. He heard surprised yells and the thump of bodies colliding with walls as gravity failed. He allowed himself a thin smile. "That's one," he whispered. The CUM crackled. "Again, what the hell's going on down there?" Unit 7, report. Evan hesitated, then responded. "Faulty grav controls. Resetting. Fine, just get it fixed." Evan moved on, his confidence growing. He wasn't strong, but he had something better, the element of surprise, as he crept toward the crew quarters. He found 2 of his shipmates bound and guarded by another pirate. Evan didn't hesitate. He fired once, dropping the pirate, then hurried to free the others. "Evan, you!" One of them gasped, staring at him in shock. "Keep your voices down," Evan hissed. "We don't have much time. We're taking back the ship." The 2 exchanged glances, but nodded. They didn't argue. Right now, Evan was the only one with a plan. Somewhere above, a pirate captain barked orders, furious about the sabotage. The hunt was on, and Evan knew it was only a matter of time before they realized the truth. But for now, the Starlight Wanderer still had a fighting chance. It all depended on the one man nobody ever expected to cook. Evan crouched in the narrow maintenance passage, the faint light from his stolen plasma rifle casting shadows on the steel walls. The 2 rescued crew members, Lena and Ortiz, followed close behind, their faces pale but determined. Lena whispered, "I can't believe you took down a pirate. You're just the cook." Evan gave her a sharp look. "Not right now. I'm not. Keep moving." The CUM device at his belt crackled with static, then a harsh voice, "Bridge secured. Engineering status." Evan pressed the transmit button, keeping his voice rough, still locking down systems. Crew resistance heavier than expected. Then, "Finish it. Captain wants the ship under our control in 5 minutes. No excuses." He clipped the CUM back to his belt, exhaling slowly. "We have 5 minutes before they figure out I'm not one of them," he murmured. "We need to act fast." Ortiz glanced nervously down the passage. "Act how? There are at least 20 of them. We're outnumbered." Evan tapped the side of his rifle. "We don't need to fight all of them. We just need to make the ship fight for us." They reached a junction where 3 passages met. Evan knelt by a control panel and pried it open with the tip of his knife. Wires sparked as he pulled at them, rerouting power. "What are you doing?" Lena asked, watching anxiously. "Diverting oxygen flow," Evan said calmly, "cutting life support to the cargo bay. That's where they're holding most of the crew. Less air means they'll move everyone to a safer area, one I can control." Ortiz's eyes widened. "You're going to suffocate them?" "No," Evan replied. "Just make them desperate. Desperate people make mistakes." A sudden thud echoed through the maintenance shaft. Heavy boots, voices guttural and harsh, carried through the walls. "They're close," Lena whispered. Evan finished rerouting the wires and sealed the panel. "Then we keep moving. Follow me." The trio emerged into the dimly lit auxiliary control room. Screens flickered with warnings. Hull breach in Sector 4. Gravity failure on mid-deck. Life support compromised in cargo bay. Lena stared at the displays. "You've caused chaos everywhere." Evan allowed himself a brief, grim smile. "Good! The more they scramble, the less they look for us." He accessed the ship's internal cameras. Pirates in mismatched armor stumbled through corridors, shouting into their CUMs. Some fought against the flickering gravity. Others dragged crew members toward the safer upper decks. Evan zoomed in on the bridge. A broad-shouldered pirate captain sat in the command chair barking orders, his scarred face twisted in frustration. Evan leaned closer, studying the layout. If we can reach the bridge, we can seal them out and call for help. But the main routes are crawling with them. Ortiz pointed to a highlighted line on the screen. What about this maintenance tunnel? Evan followed the line. It led from engineering straight to the bridge's secondary access. Tight, vertical, and rarely used. It's our best shot, Evan admitted, but it's a climb, and they'll expect resistance. We need a distraction. Lena frowned. A distraction like what? Evan glanced at the emergency venting controls. Ever seen what happens when you vent a storage bay into vacuum? Minutes later, the pirates guarding Storage Bay 3 were thrown into chaos. Alarms blared as the bay doors malfunctioned, sending crates and loose equipment hurtling into the void. Pirates scrambled to secure themselves, shouting in panic. In the confusion, Evan, Lena, and Ortiz slipped into the maintenance shaft unnoticed. The climb was brutal. Metal rungs dug into Evan's palms, sweat stung his eyes, and the rifle slung. Across his back, banged against his shoulder, Lena and Ortiz climbed silently behind him, their breathing ragged in the cramped vertical space. Halfway up, the CUM device crackled again. Engineering. Report. We've lost pressure in Storage Bay 3. What's happening down there? Evan forced, his voice steady. Malfunction. Containing it now. You'd better, or the captain will have your hide. He switched the CUM off, biting back a nervous laugh. We're running out of borrowed time, he whispered at last. They reached the top. Evan carefully pushed open the hatch and peered into the narrow corridor leading to the bridge's secondary door. 2 pirates stood guard, rifles ready. Their attention fixed on their CUM devices, Evan signaled silently to Lena and Ortiz, then raised his plasma rifle. The first shot dropped 1 guard instantly. The second pirate spun, shouting an alarm, but Ortiz tackled him before he could fire. They struggled briefly before Ortiz wrenched the rifle free and delivered a sharp blow to the pirate's helmet. Knocking him out cold, Evan keyed in the access code. The door slid open with a hiss, revealing the bridge beyond. Inside, the pirate captain turned, eyes narrowing. Who? Evan fired. The bolt slammed into the captain's shoulder, spinning him around the bridge, erupted into chaos. Pirates scrambled for cover, returning fire as Evan, Lena, and Ortiz dove behind the control consoles. Lock the doors, Evan shouted. Lena slammed her hand on the control panel, sealing the bridge's heavy doors. Metal groaned as emergency. Bolts locked into place. The pirate captain roared, blood streaming from his wound. You think you can take my ship, cook? Evan ducked behind the console, heart pounding. It's not your ship, he called back. And I'm not just the cook anymore, the firefight raged. Plasma bolts scorched the walls, console sparked, and exploded. Evan moved with grim determination, picking off pirates one by one. Ortiz covered him, firing controlled bursts, while Lena scrambled to access the ship's systems. I've got partial control, she yelled. Engines are locked, and I can cut internal comms. Do it, Evan replied, firing another shot. The pirate captain lunged from cover, swinging a jagged blade. Evan barely blocked the blow with the butt of his rifle. Sparks flew as the blade bit into the metal stock. You should have stayed in your kitchen, the captain snarled, driving forward. Evan gritted his teeth, shoving back. Maybe, but then who would save my crew? He twisted, forcing the blade aside and fired point blank. The plasma bolt struck the captain square in the chest, dropping him instantly. The remaining pirates faltered. Some threw down their weapons. Others lunged for the sealed doors, desperate to escape. Evan raised his CUM device. Attention all. Pirates, your captain is down. The ship is under our control. Surrender now, and you may live. For a moment there was silence. Then the CUM filled with panicked voices. One by one, the pirates surrendered. Lena collapsed into the captain's chair, wiping sweat from her brow. We actually did it. Ortiz leaned against a console, breathing hard. I thought we were dead for sure. Evan lowered his rifle, his hands trembling. The adrenaline drained away, leaving him exhausted. It's not over yet. We need to secure the ship and free the others. They worked quickly, locking down all remaining compartments and restoring life support to the cargo bay. Crew members stumbled out, coughing but alive, their relief turning to awe when they saw Evan. "You saved us," one whispered. "You, the cook." Evan managed a tired smile. Someone had to. Hours later, the Starlight Wanderer drifted in the safety of open space, its systems slowly returning to normal. The surviving pirates were locked in the brig. Awaiting transfer to authorities, Evan sat alone in the galley, cleaning his plasma rifle with slow, deliberate motions. The room felt different. Now less like a kitchen, more like the place where everything had changed. Lena appeared in the doorway, a faint smile on her lips. "You know, everyone's talking about you. The cook who beat the pirates. You're kind of a legend already." Evan set the rifle aside and picked up a familiar chef's knife, turning it over in his hands. "I'm just a cook," he said quietly. Lena stepped inside, her expression soft. "Not anymore, Evan. Not anymore." Outside, the stars drifted silently past, indifferent witnesses to the night when an ordinary man became something extraordinary. The ship was quiet now, eerily so. Evan sat in the galley, staring at his reflection in the polished blade of his chef's knife. Hours ago, this ship had been a prison of fear and chaos. Now it was theirs again, but the silence felt heavy, almost unnatural. Lena's voice came over the intercom. "Evan, we need you on the bridge." He sighed, set the knife down, and headed out. As he walked the familiar corridors, every step felt different. The crew members he passed stopped to nod or whisper. Some gave him grateful smiles. Others just stared, as if trying to reconcile the quiet cook they once teased with the man who had turned the tide against an entire pirate crew. On the bridge, Lena and Ortiz stood by the main console. The displays were filled with warnings damage, reports hull breaches, and systems barely holding together. "We've got a problem," Lena said, gesturing to the screen. "That fight with the pirates left us with a crippled jump drive and at least one damaged reactor. We can't go to full speed, and we're sitting ducks if anyone else comes looking." Ortiz added grimly, "And someone will come looking. Those pirates were part of a larger fleet. Their friends will notice they've gone silent." Evan frowned. "How long do we have?" Lena bit her lip. "Maybe 12 hours before they send scouts." Evan leaned against the console, thinking, "Is there anywhere nearby we can hide or make repairs?" Ortiz brought up a map. "There's an old mining station about 3 hours away. Abandoned, but if we're lucky, we might find parts for the jump drive." Evan studied the map. "We don't have much choice. Set course for the station. Keep all communications dark. I don't want anyone picking up our signal." The Starlight's Wanderer limped through space, its engines groaning with every burst of thrust. The crew moved quietly, repairing what they could, but tension lingered in the air. Everyone knew the pirates might already be on their way. In the mess hall, whispers followed Evan wherever he went. "Is it true? He killed their captain. I heard he vented an entire bay into space just to distract them. He's not just a cook anymore." Evan ignored the talk. He didn't feel like a hero. He felt tired, haunted by the memory of the pirates, screams, and the look in the captain's eyes when the plasma bolt ended his life. Later, Lena found him sitting alone, sipping cold tea. "You okay?" she asked gently. He shrugged. "I did what had to be done." She sat opposite him, watching his face. "You know the crew's looking to you now? You saved us when no one else could. People don't forget that." "I'm not a leader," Evan said quietly. "I cook. That's all I know." Lena smiled faintly. "Maybe, but when it mattered, you didn't hesitate." 3 hours later, the mining station loomed ahead, a vast, dark structure drifting in the shadow of a dead moon. Its jagged silhouette was broken by shattered towers and twisted scaffolding. Ortiz frowned at the sensor readouts. "No power, signatures, no life signs. Looks abandoned, or someone's hiding," Evan said. "We'll go in quiet. Lena, keep the ship on standby. Ortiz, you're with me." They docked with a hollow thud. The airlock hissed open, releasing a stale metallic smell. Inside, the station was a graveyard, dark corridors littered with rusted tools and abandoned equipment. Ortiz's voice echoed, softly, "Creepy place." Evan swept his light across the walls. "Focus. We're here for parts, nothing else. They moved deeper into the station, the silence broken only by the crunch of debris under their boots. Then, faintly, Evan heard a metallic clatter, like something being dropped. He raised a hand. "Did you hear that?" Ortiz nodded, gripping his rifle tighter. "We're not alone." They followed the sound to a large chamber filled with derelict mining drones. In the center, a figure in a ragged spacesuit rummaged through a crate. The figure turned at the sound of their approach, raising trembling hands. "Wait, don't shoot." The voice crackled through a damaged helmet. "Come." Evan lowered his rifle slightly. "Who are you?" The figure hesitated, then lifted the helmet. A young woman stared back at them, her face gaunt and pale. "Name's Kayla. I'm what's left of the station crew." Ortiz frowned. This place was supposed to be abandoned. Kayla gave a bitter laugh. "It was, after the pirates came. They stripped the station and left me behind. I've been hiding ever since." Evan studied her, suspicion flickering in his eyes. "You said pirates." She nodded. "Same fleet that hit you, probably. They use this station as a waiting. If you're here, they'll be back soon." Back aboard the Starlight Wanderer, Kayla hungrily devoured the food Evan placed in front of her. Between bites, she spoke quickly. "You have maybe 6 hours before a raiding party swings by to check the station. They always do after a big hit." Ortiz muttered, "We're not ready to run." Jump drive's still offline. Lena turned to Evan. "What do we do?" Evan thought for a long moment. "We set a trap." Kayla looked up startled. "A trap? Against that fleet? Are you crazy?" "They'll come expecting easy prey," Evan said. "We'll give them something else." Preparation began immediately. Evan studied the mining station schematics, a plan forming in his mind. The station still had operational or cannons, industrial launchers designed to hurl tons of rock into orbit. With a few modifications, they could become devastating weapons. "We'll use the station as bait," Evan explained. "When the pirates dock, we hit them with everything we've got. Then we finish what's left." Lena stared at him. "And if it fails," Evan met her gaze steadily, "then we don't get a second chance." Hours passed in a blur of frantic activity. The crew armed the ore cannons, rigged explosive charges, and set up remote triggers. Kayla, still weak but determined, guided them through the station's forgotten systems. As they worked, Ortiz pulled Evan aside. "You sure about this? We're talking about taking on an entire raiding party." Evan tightened the strap on his rifle. "We don't have a choice. If they find us limping, they'll tear us apart. This way, we control the battlefield." The pirates arrived right on schedule, a sleek, predatory vessel dropping out of warp with weapons. Hot Evan watched from the station's control room as the ship approached. "Wait until they're docked," he murmured. "Steady." The pirate vessel latched onto the station with a heavy clang. Boarding tubes extended, connecting with the airlocks. Evan pressed the trigger. The ore cannons roared, hurling massive chunks of rock into the pirate ship at point-blank range. Armor crumpled, hulls ruptured, and fire blossomed in the void. Explosive charges tore through the docking tubes, severing the connection and leaving pirates trapped on both sides. Lena shouted, "They're crippled." Evan grabbed his rifle. "Now we finish this." The corridors erupted into chaos as the Starlight Wanderer's crew stormed the station, ambushing disoriented pirates. Plasma fire flashed in the darkness, illuminating the twisted wreckage. Evan fought with cold precision, every shot deliberate. He wasn't the man he'd been before. The first boarding fear no longer clouded his mind. He moved like someone who had accepted the reality of killing at last. The surviving pirates surrendered, dropping their weapons. The raiding ship, crippled and venting atmosphere, drifted powerless in the void. Ortiz let out a shaky laugh. "We actually pulled it off." Evan lowered his rifle. "For now, but they'll keep coming." Lena met his gaze, eyes hard. "Then we keep fighting." Evan nodded slowly. "We will, because if we don't, no one else will." Later, as the Starlight Wanderer prepared to depart, Kayla approached Evan. "You didn't have to save me. You could have left me there." Evan shook his head. "No one deserves to be left behind," Kayla hesitated. "You know they'll never stop hunting you now. You killed their captain, and now you've destroyed a raiding ship. They'll want revenge. Evan's expression hardened. Let them come. As the stars stretched into lines and the ship jumped to safety, Evan returned to the galley, cleaning his knives with the same careful precision as always. But inside, something fundamental had changed. He was still the cookbutt now. He was also something else, the man who stood between his crew and the darkness, waiting in the void. The Starlight Wanderer moved slowly through empty space, its damaged engines humming unevenly. Inside, the crew worked tirelessly to repair the ship, but everyone felt the same thing. The pirates would come. It was only a matter of time. Evan sat in the galley, sharpening his chef's knife. The sound of steel on stone was steady, almost calming, but his mind wasn't at peace. Since the first attack, he hadn't been able to sleep properly. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw flashes of the pirate captain's furious face, the screams of men thrown into vacuum, and the burning wreckage of the raider ship. Lena entered quietly, holding a datapad. "Evan," she said softly, "we need to talk." He looked up. "What now?" She hesitated, then placed the datapad on the table. "We intercepted a transmission. The pirates know you're alive. They've sent a hunter-killer ship faster than us, better armed. And it's not just them. Word of what you did is spreading. Other crews are talking about the cook who killed a pirate captain." Evan set the knife down, his expression unreadable. "So, now I'm a target?" "Yes," Lena admitted. "You and all of us." Ortiz entered, carrying a bundle of tools. "We have one chance jump to a safe harbor before the hunter finds us, but the jump drive still isn't fully operational. It'll take another day at least." Evan nodded slowly. "Then we buy ourselves a day." Hours later, the crew gathered on the bridge. Kayla stood near the back, still thin and weak from her time hiding on the mining station, but eager to help. "I know these hunters," she said grimly. "They won't stop. They're not here to capture. They're here to make an example of you." Ortiz pulled up a schematic on the main displayer. Massive gas giant surrounded by debris from ancient battles. "There's a graveyard field 2 hours from here. Wrecked ships, metal fragments, and dense interference. If we hide there, we might buy time for repairs." Evan studied the map. "Or we might get trapped," Lena added. "It's a risk, but if we keep moving in open space, they'll catch us before the drive's fixed." Evan made his decision. Set course for the graveyard and be ready for anything. The journey was tense. Every sensor ping made hearts race. At one point, the long-range scanners picked up a faint blip, then another. The hunter ship was close. 2 hours, Lena said quietly. Maybe less? When the Starlight Wanderer finally slipped into the graveyard field, it was like entering a nightmare. Thousands of ruined ships drifted silently, their twisted hulls reflecting faint light from the distant sun. Some were so old, their origins were unknown. Others still bore the scorch marks of recent battles. Ortiz guided the ship carefully through the debris, weaving between shattered cruisers and broken satellites. "Plenty of places to hide," he muttered, "and plenty of ways to die if we hit the wrong thing." Evan watched the view screen, his jaw tight. "Find us cover, something big enough to mask our signature." They settled behind the wreck of a massive warship, its hull torn open like a wound. The ship went dark and gents offline, all external systems powered down. The crew waited in tense silence. Minutes stretched into an hour. Then Lena's voice broke the quiet. "They're here." On the sensor display, the hunter ship appeared sleek, fast, and bristling with weapons. It prowled through the graveyard like a predator, scanning wreck after wreck. Evan's knuckles whitened as he gripped the armrest. "Do they know we're here?" "Not yet," Lena whispered, "but they're closing in." Kayla leaned over the display. "They'll sweep the area systematically. We've maybe 20 minutes before they reach us." Evan's mind raced. Running was impossible. Fighting, suicide. But hiding, that might work if they could make the hunter look somewhere else. He said, "Is there anything in this field we can use for a distraction?" Ortiz thought for a moment. "There's a derelict cruiser nearby with a half-charged reactor. We could overload it remotely, make it look like we tried to power up and run." Evan nodded. "Do it." Minutes later, a bright flash lit up the graveyard as the cruiser's reactor went critical. On the sensors, the hunter immediately veered toward the explosion, weapons ready. They took the bait, Lena said, exhaling in relief. Not for long, Evan replied. They'll realize it's a trick soon. The crew remained motionless, barely breathing. 10 minutes passed. 15. Then the hunter began to turn back. They're sweeping toward us again, Lena said grimly. We're out of distractions. Evan stood, a plan forming in his mind. Then we make ourselves disappear. Kayla frowned. What do you mean? We move inside the wreck, Evan said, deep enough that their scans read us as part of the debris. Ortiz's eyes widened. You're suggesting we fly the Wanderer into that? He pointed at the massive, gutted warship looming outside. Exactly, Evan said. It's our only chance. Maneuvering the Starlight Wanderer into the warship's corpse was a nerve-wracking process. The crew guided her through jagged gaps and collapsed corridors, the hull scraping against twisted metal. At last, they settled deep inside, shrouded by the thick plating. Lena shut down the last of the ship's systems. We're as dark as we can get. The hunter ship returned, scanning the area. On the view screen, its search beams swept dangerously close. Everyone held their breath. Seconds crawled by. Then, slowly, the hunter turned away, moving deeper into the graveyard. They're leaving, Lena whispered, relief flooding her voice. Not yet, Evan warned. Hunters always circle back. Hours passed. The crew waited in suffocating silence, afraid even to whisper. Finally, the sensors showed the hunter ship exiting the field. Ortiz slumped in his chair. We made it, but Evan didn't relax. Not yet. They'll be back with reinforcements. We need to get the jump drive operational before they return. In engineering, the crew worked around the clock. Sparks flew as Ortiz and Kayla repaired the damaged conduits. Evan lent a hand where he could, his steady presence keeping everyone focused. At last, Ortiz straightened, sweat dripping down his brow. Jump drives online barely. We've got one shot at this. Evan nodded. Then let's take it. As the Starlight Wanderer slipped free of the graveyard field and leaped into hyperspace, the tension finally broke. Crew members hugged, laughed, and wept with relief. For now, they were safe. In the galley, Evan cleaned his knife once more. Lena entered, watching him silently for a moment before speaking. They're calling you a legend out there, she said softly. The cook who fought pirates and outsmarted a hunter ship. Evan set the knife down and met her gaze. Legends don't feel this tired, she smiled faintly. Maybe, but you've given people hope, and that matters. Evan looked out the viewport at the streaking stars. The danger wasn't over. He knew the pirates would keep hunting them, but for now, his crew was alive, and that was enough. Hyperspace blurred outside the viewports, endless streaks of lights sliding past like rain. For the first time in days, the Starlight Wanderer had breathing room, but no one on board truly relaxed. Everyone knew the truth, the pirates wouldn't. Stop. Evan leaned against the galley counter, his chef's knife resting on the cutting board. He turned it slowly in his hands, feeling the familiar weight. Cooking had once been his entire world, but now the blade felt like something else, a reminder of what he had become. Lena entered, carrying a datapad. We've got a problem, she said, voice tight. Evan gave a weary smile. You always do. This one's different, she insisted, handing him the pad. I've been going through Kella's intel on the pirate fleet. They've put a bounty on your head, Evan, not just a price on open contract. Every raider, mercenary, and outlaw. This sector knows your name now. They're calling you the cook who killed Black Hark. Evan frowned. Black Hark. Kayla appeared in the doorway, her expression grim. The pirate captain you killed. He wasn't just anyone. He was one of their top commanders. They'll want revenge, and not just the fleet anyone hungry for. The reward will come hunting you. Ortiz's voice crackled over the comm. We're getting chatter on the long-range bands. Ships are converging on our trajectory. We can't stay in hyperspace forever. Where do we go? Evan studied the pad, his mind already racing. We find somewhere they won't follow. Somewhere even pirates fear to go. 2 hours later, the Starlight Wanderer dropped out of hyperspace, near a swirling nebula of crimson and gold. Gas clouds twisted like living things, illuminated by bursts of strange lightning. Ortiz whistled softly. The red veil. You're insane, Evan. No one charts a course through that. Ships vanish in That's why it's perfect, Evan said. The nebula's interference will mask our signature. We hide there until we figure out our next move. Lena hesitated. Or we vanish like the others. Evan met her gaze. Do you trust me? She held his eyes for a moment, then nodded. Always. Navigating the red veil was like threading a needle through a storm. Turbulence rocked the ship, and electrical discharges played across the hull. Sensor readings were unreliable, distorted by the dense plasma. Kayla sat at the engineering console, scanning the nebula. I'm picking up energy signatures, faint, but they're there. Could be wreckage, could be something else. Anything dangerous? Evan asked. She hesitated. Honestly, in here, everything's dangerous. A sudden jolt threw them all against their harnesses. Alarms blared as the ship lurched. What was that? Ortiz shouted. Lena checked the displays. Collision alert, something clipped the port engine housing. Minimal damage, but wait, her voice faltered. It wasn't debris. Something's moving out there. On the view screen, a shape loomed massive, dark, and indistinct against the nebula's glow. It glided closer, unnervingly fast, until faint lights revealed its form. A derelict warship, larger than any Evan had ever seen. Ortiz stared in awe. That's not pirate tech, not even close. Looks ancient. Kella's fingers flew over. The sensors. I'm reading faint power readings. It's not completely dead. Evan studied the warship's scarred hull. If there's power, there might be supplies, maybe even parts we can use. Lena frowned. Or something worse. Prepare. A boarding team, Evan said firmly. We don't have a choice. Evan, Lena, and Ortiz crossed to the warship via a maintenance shuttle. Inside, the corridors were vast and silent, lined with strange, unfamiliar markings. Dust floated in the weightless air, disturbed by their passing. Ortiz whispered, "Feels like we're walking inside a tomb." Lena swept her light across the walls. Whatever built this, they weren't human. They reached what appeared to be an engineering bay. Strange machinery hummed faintly, still alive after untold centuries. Kella's voice came through the comm. I'm getting stronger readings. There's an intact power core to levels down. If we can salvage it, it might give the Wanderer a real upgrade. Evan nodded. Let's move. As they descended, the lights flickered. A low mechanical hum echoed through the corridors, growing louder with each step. Ortiz swallowed nervously. Tell me that's not the ship waking up. Evan kept his rifle ready. Stay alert. They entered a vast chamber dominated by a towering crystal-like structure, pulsing with dim blue light. Conduits snaked out from it like veins. Kella's awed voice filled their comms. That's not just a power core. It's a fusion quantum hybrid. If we can bring it online, the Wanderer would outrun anything in this sector. Lena glanced around uneasily. Then why does it feel like we're being watched? Evan approached the core, examining the interface. Ortiz, start the transfer prep. Kayla, talk me through the bypass. As Ortiz worked, a panel on the far wall suddenly lit up. A distorted voice filled the chamber, speaking in a language none of them understood. Lena raised her weapon. We're not alone. Holographic figures flickered into existence around them, ghostly silhouettes of the ship's long-dead crew. Their voices overlapped in a haunting chorus, then faded as quickly as they had appeared. Ortiz whispered, "What the hell was that?" Kella's voice trembled. Residual AI. This ship's systems are still active, and they're trying to communicate. Evan glanced at the pulsing core. Can they stop us from taking it? Maybe, Kayla admitted. Or maybe they'll try something worse. Suddenly, alarms blared on the Starlight Wanderer. Lena's comm crackled with static, then Ortiz's panicked voice, multiple ships dropping out of hyperspace pirate hunters. They've tracked us into the nebula. Evan cursed. We're out of time. Kayla, how long until the cores? Ready, 10 minutes, she replied. We don't have 10 minutes. Get what you can now. We're leaving. They hurried back toward the shuttle, the ancient ship groaning as if in protest. Behind them, the pulsing light of the core flared, casting long, eerie shadows as they launched from the warship. Pirate vessels closed in, their weapons struggling to lock onto targets through the nebulous interference. Ortiz pushed the shuttle to its limits, weaving through turbulent gas clouds and bursts of electrical energy. Evan watched the pursuing ships on the display. They're not giving up. Once we're back on the Wanderer, we jump no matter what shape the drive's in. Moments later, they docked and transferred the salvaged power modules. The Wanderer roared to life, its systems surging with new energy. Lena grinned, exhilarated. Jump drive at full capacity. We can outrun them. Evan strapped in. Then let's move. The ship leaped into hyperspace, just as pirate fire lanced through the spot they had occupied seconds before in the quiet that followed. Kayla leaned against the bulkhead, shaking her head. That was too close. They'll keep coming, you know. They won't stop until you're dead. Evan cleaned his knife with deliberate care. Then we stay ahead of them. And next time we don't just run, we hit back. Lena studied him, worry in her eyes. Evan, what are you planning? He met her gaze, his voice calm and steady. If they want a war, we'll give them one, but we do it on our terms. Outside, hyperspace streamed by the ship, carrying them deeper into unknown space toward allies they hadn't met yet, and battles still to come. Hyperspace stretched endlessly around the Starlight Wanderer, blue and white streaks swirling past the viewports. The crew was exhausted, but restless. They had escaped the pirates again, but everyone knew the truth. They were being hunted, and the hunters would not stop. Evan stood alone in the observation deck, his reflection a dark silhouette against the stars. He had spent hours there, knife in hand, turning it slowly in his fingers. Once, it had been just a chef's knife used to chop vegetables and carve roasts. Now it was the symbol of something heavier, the man he had become. Footsteps echoed behind him. Lena entered quietly, her arms folded. "You're not sleeping," she said softly. "Neither are you," Evan replied without turning. She stepped up beside him, her eyes on the endless hyperspace. "Kella's right, they'll never stop hunting you. Black Hark's fleet has lost ships, and you've humiliated them. That bounty has made you a legend in all the wrong circles." Evan finally turned to face her. "Then we have to stop running." Lena frowned. "You're talking about fighting them? All of them. That's suicide. Not if we don't fight." "Alone," Evan said. "There are people out there who've suffered under the pirates for years. Merchants, colonies, independent crews, maybe even others who've lost everything. If we bring them together, we stand a chance." Later, in the strategy room, Evan gathered Lena, Ortiz, Kayla, and several senior crew members around a holographic map of the sector. "The pirate fleet controls nearly every major trade lane," Ortiz said grimly, highlighting the map. "They hit freighters, passenger liners, even military convoys. No one's safe." Kayla pointed to a cluster of systems near the edge of the chart. "But there are safe harbors, hidden ports, where outlaws and rebels gather. People there hate the pirates, but they've never had a reason to unite. Give them one, and they'll fight." Evan studied the map. "Then we start there. We make allies gather intel and learn their weaknesses. The pirates think we're prey. Let's make them the hunted." Lena raised an eyebrow. "You really think we can pull this off?" Evan's voice was steady. "We don't have a choice." The Wanderer emerged from hyperspace near the rim, a cluster of lawless systems far from the reach of any government. Their first stop was Haven's Reach, a sprawling station built into the remains of an asteroid colony. As they approached, Ortiz muttered, "Watch yourself in there. Everyone's looking for easy marks, and half of them are probably after that bounty." Evan nodded, adjusting the concealed holster of his plasma sidearm. "Stay close and keep your eyes open." Inside the station, the air was thick with smoke and the smell of oil. Traders, smugglers, and mercenaries filled the crowded corridors. News of the bounty followed Evan like a shadow. He caught whispers of the cook and Black Hark in every corner. At a grimy cantina, Kayla led them to a private booth. "There's someone you need to meet," she said. Goran Vey, former pirate turned mercenary captain, he hates Hark's fleet more than anyone. Moments later, a broad-shouldered man with a cybernetic eye slid into the seat opposite Evan. "So," Goran rumbled, "you're the cook, causing all the noise." Evan met his gaze calmly. "And you're the man who knows how to hurt the fleet." Goran grinned, revealing a row of steel teeth. "Maybe I do. Question is, what's in it for me?" Evan leaned forward, revenge, and a chance to end them for good. Over the next hours, Goran laid out the fleet's structure. Black Hark's death had left a power vacuum. Two lieutenants were fighting for control, splitting the fleet's forces and leaving their supply lines vulnerable. If you hit their supply depots, they'll tear each other apart, Goran said. They can't fight each other and defend their resources at the same time. Kayla studied the data. There's a refueling hub in the Ashen Belt, lightly guarded but critical to their operations. Take that out and you'll cripple their long-range raids. Evan nodded. Then that's our first target. That night, as the crew prepared for the mission, Lena confronted Evan in the galley. You're dragging all of us into open war. Are you sure about this? Evan wiped his knife clean, his expression unreadable. They've been hunting us since Hark boarded our ship. Running won't change that. But if we strike back, if we hurt them badly enough, maybe they'll start running. Lena searched his face. And if we fail, then we go down fighting. Together, 2 days later, the Starlight Wanderer dropped out of hyperspace near the Ashen Belt. Vast fields of rock and ice tumbled silently, lit by the pale glow of a distant sun. In the center, a sprawling pirate refueling station clung to a massive asteroid, its docking arms bristling with fuel pods. Ortiz guided the Wanderer into a debris cloud, masking their approach. Defense grids active but old. If we keep our signature low, we can get close. Evan checked his gear. Lena Caliur with me. Ortiz, hold the ship ready for extraction. Under the cover of darkness, Evan's team infiltrated the station. They moved swiftly through narrow maintenance corridors. Avoiding patrols and security drones at the core of the station, Kayla accessed the fuel control systems. I can overload the reactors, but once I start the process, we'll have 5 minutes to get clear. Do it, Evan said, as the countdown began. Alarms blared. Pirates swarmed the corridors, plasma fire lighting the station in harsh flashes. Go, Evan shouted, cutting down to pirates with precise shots. They fought their way back to the shuttle, the walls shaking as the reactors went critical. The station erupted behind them in a massive explosion, a fiery bloom tearing the asteroid apart. Aboard the Wanderer, the crew watched the destruction on the viewscreen. Ortiz let out a low whistle. That'll get their attention. Evan strapped his knife to his belt. Good, let them know we're coming. Later, in the quiet of the galley, Lena approached him. You've changed, she said softly. You're not just fighting to survive anymore. Evan looked down at the blade in his hands. No, now I'm fighting to win. She hesitated, then asked, How far are you willing to go? Evan's eyes were cold, determined. As far as it takes. Outside, the stars drifted silently by, bearing witness to the birth of a war that had only just begun. The pirate fleet reeled from the destruction of the Ashen Belt Station in back-alley bars and encrypted cum channels. Whispers spread of the man responsible, the cook who had killed Black Hark and now struck at the fleet's heart. On the Starlight Wanderer, tension coiled like a living thing. Evan studied a star map in the strategy room, Lena and Kayla beside him. We hit them hard, Lena said quietly. But that just means they'll hit back harder. They'll scatter, Kayla added. To lieutenants fighting for control means fractured command. Some will chase us. Some will fight each other. We need to push before they recover. Evan nodded slowly. We can't outgun them, so we outthink them. Take away what keeps their fleet together, fear and loyalty. Later, Evan addressed the crew in the galley. Every eye was on him, and women who had once dismissed him as just the ship's cook were not running anymore, he began. They've hunted us since Hark boarded this ship. Now they're bleeding, and they're afraid. We keep the pressure on. One strike at a time, we turn the hunters into the hunted. A murmur rippled through the crew, a mix of fear and grim resolve. Evan saw it in their eyes. They were ready to fight with Goran Vay's intelligence. They launched a series of lightning raids in the Karthos Drift. The Wanderer ambushed a pirate supply convoy, crippling 3 freighters before reinforcements arrived. In the Obsidian Reach, Evan led a boarding action that freed dozens of captives and seized a cache of weapons. Each victory sent ripples of panic through the pirate ranks. But with every strike, the bounty on Evan's head grew. Ortiz frowned at the latest data feed. They're offering triple for you now. Every gun for hire in the sector will be gunning for us. Evan wiped his blade clean, his expression calm. Let them come. The more they send, the fewer left to protect their leaders. Between battles, Evan and Lena planned their next move. Kayla, working tirelessly, intercepted pirate communications. One night, she burst into the strategy room, eyes wide. "I found them," she said breathlessly. "The lieutenants. They're meeting in neutral space at a rendezvous point called Targos Haven. They'll have escort ships, but most of their fleet's busy holding territory." Lena frowned. A chance to take out both at once, or walk into a trap. Evan studied the map. "Either way, we can't ignore it." They jumped to Targos Haven, a desolate system orbiting a dying sun. The pirates' meeting point was an abandoned orbital station, its hull scarred by past battles. From the shadows of an asteroid field, the Wanderer crept closer. Evan gathered his strike team, Lena, Kayla, and 2 seasoned crew members. Ortiz's voice came through the comm. "You'll have 15 minutes before their long-range patrols swing back. After that, we're exposed." "Understood," Evan replied. "Keep the ship hot." They breached the station through a maintenance airlock. Inside, flickering lights cast long, twisted shadows. Voices echoed from a chamber ahead raised, angry and familiar. Evan signaled silence, creeping closer. Through a cracked bulkhead, they saw the 2 pirate lieutenants, flanked by guards. "Arguing heatedly, they're tearing the fleet apart," Lena whispered. "If we take them down." A sudden creak betrayed their presence. One of the guards turned, shouting a warning. Plasma fire erupted, filling the corridor with blinding light. "Move," Evan barked. The fight was brutal and close quarters. Evan's team pressed forward, every shot deliberate. One lieutenant fell in the crossfire, a scream cut short. The second fled deeper into the station, leaving his guards to die. "After him," Evan ordered. They pursued through twisting corridors, the station shuddering as stray blasts struck critical systems. At last, they cornered the surviving lieutenant in the control room. He raised his weapon, desperation in his eyes. Evan fired. First, the man collapsed, lifeless. Alarms blared as the station's systems failed. Lena scanned the consoles. "Self-destructs, been triggered weave. Got 3 minutes." They sprinted back toward the airlock, the station tearing itself apart. Around them, bulkheads buckled and fire blossomed in the failing systems. They dove into the shuttle just as the orbital station exploded, a silent bloom of fire consuming the wreck. Back aboard the Wanderer, Ortiz reported grimly, "Pirate channels are in chaos. With both lieutenants gone, the fleet's fragmenting. Small crews are already breaking off." Evan nodded. "Good, but it won't last. Someone will rise to fill the gap. We need to be ready." Lena studied him. "You're not celebrating. This isn't the end," Evan said quietly. "It's the beginning of something worse." In the quiet hours that followed, Evan found himself in the galley once more, cleaning his knife. Kayla entered hesitantly. "They're calling you something new now," she said. "Not just the cook, they're calling you the ghost." Of Blackhark, the man who haunts the fleet, Evan said nothing, his face unreadable. Kayla hesitated. "Do you ever wonder what this is turning you into?" Evan finally looked up. "It doesn't matter what I become. What matters is that they never hurt anyone like us again." Outside, the stars turned slowly, silent witnesses to a war that was no longer just survival, it was vengeance. The pirate fleet was broken, scattered into warring factions, but the bounty on Evan's head hadn't faded. If anything, it had grown. Across the rim, whispers spoke of a new power rising among the raiders, someone ruthless enough to unite them again. On the Starlight Wanderer, the mood was uneasy. Victories had brought them fame and fear, but also a sense that something worse was coming. Lena stood with Evan in the strategy room, the star map casting pale blue light over their faces. Kayla intercepted more chatter. She said, "They're rallying under someone new, Calcine Vorak." Evan frowned. "Never heard of him. Neither has anyone else," Lena admitted. "But the pirates are terrified. They say Vorak doesn't just command loyalty, he forces it. Every captain who refuses to join him ends up dead." Evan's gaze hardened. "Then he'll come for us, sooner or later." Goran Vey arrived on the Wanderer 2 days later, scarred face, grim. "I've fought Vorak before," he said, dropping heavily into a chair. "He's worse than Hark ever was. Cold, efficient, doesn't care about loot chest control. He won't stop until every raider flies under his flag. Or burns. Kayla folded her arms. How does he do it? Goran leaned forward. Fear. Vorak commands a flagship called the Iron Howl, equipped with tech I've never seen. Rumor says he took it from a forgotten wargrave. Whole fleets have vanished trying to face him. Evan absorbed this silently. Then we find him. Before he finds us, the hunt began. The Wanderer jumped from system to system, chasing fragments of rumor and coded transmissions. Vorak's fleet moved like a shadow, striking convoys and disappearing before help arrived. Finally, Kayla triangulated. A pattern he's operating near the Helix Expanse. If we can get ahead of him, we might learn where the Iron Howl hides. Lena frowned. Or we walk straight into an ambush. Evan met her gaze steadily. We've been hunted long enough. Time to turn the tables. The Helix Expanse was a graveyard of stars, a twisted labyrinth of shattered planets and asteroid fields. The Wanderer crept through its darkness, sensors straining. Ortiz muttered from the helm. I don't like this. Too many blind spots. Kella's console beeped contact. Large vessel, minimal emissions. Bearing 342, her voice cut off as the view screen filled with a monstrous shape. Vorak's flagship, the Iron Howl. Its hull was jagged black steel, bristling with strange alien weaponry. Lena whispered, by the stars. What is that thing? Before they could react, the Iron Howl powered up. A low thrumming filling, there comes like a living growl. Evasive, Evan snapped. Energy beams lanced through the void, grazing the Wanderer's shields. The ship shuddered violently, alarms screaming. Ortiz threw them into a hard roll, diving between tumbling asteroids. We can't outrun her, we need cover. Take us into the debris field, Evan ordered, inside the twisting maze of rock. The Wanderer dodged through narrow gaps, the Iron Howl close behind. Asteroids shattered under the Predator's weapons, each blast lighting the dark with fire. Kayla worked frantically at her console. Their weapons are wrong. Energy signatures, not pirate tech. It's something else, something ancient. Analysis later. Evan barked. Ortiz, can we lose them? Not for long, Ortiz gritted. They're faster, stronger, everything. A sudden flash lit up the debris field as the Iron Howl's weapons tore through a cluster of asteroids. Shockwave slammed the Wanderer, sending her spinning shields down to 40%. Lena reported. Evan gripped his harness. We need to hit them back. Ortiz, get us behind that ridge. Kayla, ready the pulse torpedoes. They swung around, a massive fragment of shattered planet. As the Iron Howl closed in, Evan gave the order. Fire. The Wanderer's torpedoes streaked toward the Predator. Explosions flared across its hull, briefly staggering the giant ship. Minimal damage, Kayla said grimly. Whatever that hull's made of, our weapons barely scratch it. Evan's mind raced. Then we changed the fight. Get us out of here. Ortiz slammed the engines to full power, diving deeper into the expanse. The Iron Howl pursued for several agonizing minutes before breaking off, vanishing into the darkness as suddenly as it had appeared. Silence fell on the bridge. Everyone sat stunned, the weight of the encounter sinking in. Kayla finally spoke. We can't face that thing head on. We need an edge, something stronger. Evan nodded slowly. And I think I know where to find it. Later, in the galley, Lena confronted him. You froze when you saw that ship. Why? Evan looked down at his knife, turning it in his hands. Because it wasn't a pirate ship. Vorak's using something far older, far deadlier. I've seen fragments of tech like that before, on the derelict we salvaged in the Red Veil. Lena's eyes widened. You think it's connected? I know it is, Evan said. And if Vorak has the whole thing, we're going to need more than a crew to stop him. The next day, Goran studied Vorak's ship schematics on the display. If you want to beat the Iron Howl, you'll need allies. Big ones, whole fleets, who hate the pirates enough to risk everything. Evan nodded. Then that's what we? Do we gather everyone Vorak has ever wronged? If we're lucky, we turn his fear against him. Kayla hesitated. And if we're not, Evan's voice was steady. Then we die fighting. In the days that followed, the Wanderer sent encrypted messages to sympathetic captains, rebel enclaves, and old pirate enemies. Slowly, responses trickled in ships willing to join the fight. Meanwhile, Vorak's shadow spread. Worlds fell silent. Convoys vanished. Survivors spoke of the iron howl tearing through entire fleets. Each new report hardened Evan's resolve. One night, Lena found him on the observation deck. "You're building an army," she said quietly. "I'm building a chance, Evan." Corrected, she studied him. And if it's not enough, Evan's gaze never left the stars. "Then I make sure Vorak never forgets my name." The Starlight Wanderer jumped once more, carrying Evan and his crew deeper into uncharted space, the allies they hoped to find, and the war Vorak was bringing ever closer. The Starlight Wanderer sailed through uncharted space, its hull scarred from too many battles. Evan stood at the strategy table, watching as blue lights blinked onto the holographic Mapich-1, a ship that had answered his call. "Not enough," Gorenve muttered, arms folded. "A dozen ships against Vorak's fleet will be torn apart." "It's a start," Evan said. "Every day Vorak terrorizes the Rim. More captains will join us. Fear built his empire. Fear will tear it down." Lena leaned against the wall, studying the map. "We need a place to rally. Somewhere safe, away from Vorak's spies." Kayla tapped a control, enlarging a distant system. "There's a hidden station in the Kareen Drift. It used to be a smuggler hub before the pirates drove everyone out. We could rebuild it, make it our base." Evan nodded. "Set course." The Kareen Drift was a turbulent region of swirling gas clouds and electromagnetic storms. The station they found was a derelict husk, its docking arms twisted and dark. Ortiz guided the Wanderer in carefully. Life support's dead, systems offline, but the structure's intact. Evan led the boarding team. Inside, the air was cold and stale, their flashlights cutting through decades of dust. "This will work," Evan decided. "Kayla, get the systems online. Goran, coordinate with the incoming ships. We need defenses up yesterday." For days, they worked tirelessly. Lights flickered back to life. Engines hummed. A fleet began to gather freighters, converted mining ships, even a few old war frigates. For the first time, Evan felt hope, but hope brought danger. Not everyone who answered the call could be trusted. Late one cycle, Kayla intercepted a coded message transmitted from inside the drift. It was a signal to Vorak's fleet. Evan gathered Lena, Goran, and Ortiz in the strategy room. "We have a traitor," he said grimly. "Someone's feeding Vorak our location." Goran slammed a fist against the table. "Find them before Vorak gets here, or all of this dies with us." They set a trap. For the next 24 hours, they fed false data through secure channels locations of non-existent supply depots. False ship movements. The next evening, Kella's console pinged, got them the leaks coming from Bay 7. Evan and Lena arrived minutes later, weapons drawn. They found a wiry man hunched over a transmitter, hastily sending data. He froze as they entered, guilt etched across his face. "Why?" Evan demanded. The man swallowed. "Vorak promised me safety. Credits, a ship of my own. You can't beat him. No one can." Evan's voice was cold. "Get him off my station." Two guards dragged the man away, his protests echoing through the corridor, but the damage was done. Hours later, Kella's sensors screamed, multiple ships dropping out of hyperspace Vorak scouts. "They found us." Evan barked orders. "Scramble all ships. Defend the station." The first wave of raiders hit like a hammer, plasma fire tearing across the drift. Allied ships engaged, a desperate melee lighting the darkness. From the bridge of the Wanderer, Evan watched as a freighter took a direct hit and exploded. "The line," he ordered. "We can't let them signal Vorak." The battle raged for hours. Slowly, the Allies pushed the raiders back, scattering the survivors into the storms. On the comm, Goran's voice crackled, triumphant. "We held them. Vorak scouts are down." Evan nodded grimly. "Not good enough. Vorak will come himself next time. We need to be ready." In the aftermath, tensions simmered. Some captains wanted to abandon the drift, fearing Vorak's wrath. Others clamored for revenge. Evan gathered them in the station's main hall. "You all know what Vorak is," he said, his voice carrying through the chamber. "He rules by fear, but fear only works if we let it. Together, we've already faced his hunters and won. Together, we can end him. A low murmur swept through the crowd. For the first time, Evan saw belief in their eyes. That night, Lena found him in the quiet galley, the familiar knife in his hand. "You think they'll stay?" she asked. "They'll stay," Evan said. "They're tired of running, just like us." She hesitated. "What about you? What happens when Vorac's gone?" Evan stared at the blade, its edge catching the light. "Then maybe I get to be a cook again." Days later, Kayla brought news. "We've decoded a Signivorix fleet. Is regrouping at a staging ground in the Sable Reach. This is it, Evan. He's consolidating power. If we strike now, we might catch him off guard." Evan studied the data. Vorac's flagship, the Iron Howl, was there surrounded by the remnants of the pirate armada. He closed the file, his decision made. "We take the fight to Vorac." Lena met his gaze. "All or nothing." "All or nothing," Evan agreed. As the Allied fleet prepared for war, Evan stood on the observation deck, watching the stars. For months, they had run. For months, they had fought. Now, at last, the end was in sight. Lena joined him quietly. "You ready for this?" Evan's grip tightened on the knife at his side. "I've been ready since the day they boarded my ship." Outside, dozens of Allied vessels formed up, their drives flaring bright against the darkness. For the first time, Evan saw not a scattered group of survivors, but an army. The war was no longer about running. It was about ending Vorac once and for all. The Allied fleet emerged from hyperspace in the Sable Reach, dozens of ships spreading across the dark void. Ahead, Vorac's armada waited, a wall of steel bristling with weapons. Led by the monstrous flagship, the Iron Howl dot on the bridge. Of the Starlight Wanderer, Evan stood calm and still, his gaze fixed on the enemy. Around him, the crew moved with quiet efficiency. They all knew this was the end one way or another. Lena checked her readouts. "Vorac's hailing us." "Put him through," Evan said. The view screen filled with Vorac's face, pale, scarred, and cold. His eyes burned with ruthless certainty. "So," Vorac rumbled, "the cook who murdered Black Hark thinks he can challenge me." Evan met his gaze. "I'm not here to challenge you. I'm here to end you." Vorac's lips twisted into a cruel smile. "Then come and die." The channel cut, and the stars lit with fire. Allied ships surged forward, unleashing a storm of plasma and torpedoes. Vorac's fleet returned fire, the void erupting with deadly light. "Keep formation." Goran barked over the coms. "Protect the cruisers." The Wanderer weaved through the chaos, her upgraded engines screaming. Evan's voice was steady. "Target their escorts." We punch a hole straight to the Iron Howl. Kayla worked the sensors, her hands flying across the console. "Shields at 60%. We can't take much more of this." "Then don't." "Get hit," Evan said. An enemy destroyer loomed ahead, cannons blazing. Ortiz rolled the ship hard, slipping under its fire, and Lena unleashed a spread of torpedoes. Explosions ripped through the destroyer's hull, tearing it apart. "Path to the flagship is opening," Kayla shouted. "Take us in," Evan ordered. As they closed on the Iron Howl, the sheer scale of Vorac's ship became clear. It dwarfed the Wanderer, its blackened hull lined with strange alien runes that pulsed with sickly light. "Energy readings spiking," Kayla warned. "They're powering up that main cannon." Evan made his decision instantly. "All power to forward. Shields, get us under their guns." The Wanderer dove toward the massive ship, skimming just meters above its armored surface. The main cannon fired, a beam of white-hot energy lancing through space where they had been seconds before. "Docking clamps ready," Lena called. "We've got one shot at this. Make it count," Evan said. The Wanderer latched onto a maintenance bay on the Iron Howl's underside. Evan led the boarding team, Lena, Goran, and Kayla to the heart of Vorac's flagship. Inside, the corridors were cold and silent, lit by eerie blue light. Strange alien machinery hummed beneath their feet. "This isn't pirate tech," Kayla whispered. "It's older. Much older." "Stay focused," Evan said. "Bridge is this way." They moved swiftly, cutting through pockets of resistance. Vorac's crew fought with fanatical loyalty, but one by one, they fell. At last, they reached the command chamber. Vorac waited, clad in black armor, a massive blade in his hands. So, he said softly. "The cook comes to kill the wolf." Evan raised his plasma rifle. "You've taken enough lives. This ends now." Vorak moved with terrifying speed, deflecting Evan's shots and closing the distance. The plasma rifle was knocked aside, and the two men collided in a brutal clash. Evan's chef's knife flashed, meeting Vorak's blade in a shower of sparks. The pirate lord was stronger, every strike forcing Evan back. "You think you can? Kill me with a kitchen knife," Vorak snarled. Evan gritted his teeth, holding his ground. "It's not the knife. It's the man holding it." Lena and Goran fought Vorak's guards, Kayla working desperately to disable the ship's systems. "Evan," Kayla shouted, "if we don't shut down the core, this whole ship will tear the fleet apart." Vorak lunged, his blade biting into Evan's shoulder. Pain flared white-hot, but Evan twisted, driving his knife deep into the pirate's side. For a heartbeat, Vorak froze, shock in his eyes. Then Evan wrenched the blade free and drove it home again. Piercing the pirate lord's heart, Vorak staggered, disbelief etched across his scarred face. "A cook," he rasped before collapsing. Alarms blared. Kayla yelled over the din. Cores overloading. "We have to go. Now." They ran, the iron howl shuddering around them. Bulkheads crumpled as explosions rippled through the massive ship. "Ortiz, get us out of here!" Evan barked into his cum. The Wanderer detached and sped away just as the iron howl erupted in a titanic explosion, a shockwave tearing through Vorak's fleet. Leaderless and shattered, the remaining pirate ships scattered into the void. On the bridge of the Wanderer, cheers erupted. Goran slumped into a chair, grinning through the blood on his face. "We did it. Vorak's dead." Lena turned to Evan, who stood silent, his knife still in his hand. "It's over," she said. Softly. Evan shook his head. "For us, maybe. But for every world they burned, for every life they took, it's never really over." Days later, the Allied fleet gathered in the Carrying Drift. Captains who had once lived in fear now spoke of rebuilding, of hunting down the remnants of Vorak's forces. Evan stood apart, gazing out at the stars. Lena joined him quietly. "You kept your promise," she said. "The pirates won't terrorize the Rim anymore." "Maybe," Evan murmured, "but peace doesn't last. There's always another Vorak out there." She studied him. "What about you? What happens now?" Evan turned the chef's knife in his hand, the blade catching the starlight. "Maybe I cook again. Maybe I keep fighting. I don't know." Lena smiled faintly. "Whatever you choose, you won't be alone." As the Starlight Wanderer jumped into the unknown, Evan felt the weight of the war still on his shoulders. He had begun this journey as a cook, forced to fight when pirates boarded his ship. Now he was something else, something the pirates would never forget. And somewhere out there, in the endless dark, another threat waited. Evan tightened his grip on the knife. Whatever came next, he would be ready. The end.